Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us, my friend. I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast, and we have some amazing people, as always, to talk to. And this week, we are talking to Deanne Rose from the Unbridled Woman, or yes, that's what the program is, the Unbridled Woman. And we are going to talk, desire. Who doesn't want to talk about desire? Oh my gosh, seriously.
Yes, yay.
Yay. Hi, Deanne. How are you
Hello.
today?
I'm wonderful, Heather. How are you?
I'm doing great,
Yeah.
actually. I have 2023 is a good year, man. We've been
It,
waiting so long.
yeah, it,
Right.
it started, it's going well. It's
It's
going by
going well.
fast. And yeah, it's just as we were talking before, I'm so happy I saw this on my calendar. I've been looking forward to this chat with you.
Yes, me too. And because I don't have these conversations very much on the podcast, there's a lot of talk about what to eat and what to invest in and how to think, but we don't often talk about the other aspects of life. But
Mhm.
before we do, I'm always curious, what what first of all, what kind of coach do you call yourself?
I am an intimacy coach and and then I'm getting certified as a sex educator.
Okay, and
Mhm.
then because the terminology is important. And uh, what what drew you to be an intimacy coach?
Well, I'm a true believer in that we get drawn to things that we actually need healing for in ourselves.
Right.
And those are the things that interest us and we kind of study. And so that's kind of what happened with my scenario. So I I started this journey back in 2018,
Well,
and I was divorced a few years before that, and it was this was just another breadcrumb that I was called to follow, was to really connect back to my pleasure and sensuality and to my feminine energy and essence, and to really understand truly what that means to walk this way and be in this world, and truly how sexual energy is our life force energy. It's part of our overall health. And for me, it was a lot of healing, and then so much transformation that it was evident to me that if I felt this way, and the women who were in my programs with me at that time, there are other women and men out there that need this work. So this is
right.
my passion and my calling.
And when you talk to people about it, I mean, what kinds of things are people searching for? I mean, I can't imagine it's all just about being in the bedroom. I mean, there's
No,
so much
no,
more to
it's
it than
not.
that.
Yeah, and that's why I play around with names of what I do,
Right.
and intimacy really kind of fell because everybody's looking for some kind of intimacy, a connection, whether it's to other people or to themselves. And that's sensuality. It's a connection to the pleasure in life. And it could be sex. It could be an ice cream cone, but it's allowing ourselves that permission, and releasing that shame and guilt and that trauma that might have been put upon us that said, no, you're not worthy of that. You can't have that. So the essence of my work is really to help help people remember really who they are,
Right.
and to step into a more empowered version of themselves.
It's so this sometimes I wonder if the universe just aligns things for me because just today, have you heard of the book Outwitting the Devil?
I actually, a friend of mine just told me about that.
Okay. Well, maybe the planets are aligning for
Yes.
you too, by Napoleon Hill. And I heard about it on another podcast that I listened to. And I mean, Napoleon Hill is, whether you believe it or not, he's interviewing the devil about how he controls people. And the devil is talking about how he uses sex to control people. And
Mhm.
it was interesting. The devil said, sex is not. What did they use the term? It's like not dirty. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It is how we continue creation. Like it is a form
Yeah.
of creation. It's when it's misused that and misunderstood and used improperly that the devil has control of you. If you can
Yeah.
insert the name of the evil being of your
Right.
preference right there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
apparently
Yeah.
the devil also uses procrastination, my friends out there. But so it
Um,
is like I think if the Puritans in us, we have this long, huge history
mhm.
of, oh my gosh, we don't talk about that, right?
No, absolutely. And I think that that quote you said is so very true, because when things gets there's a song, I think it's a country song. When you stuff things down, they come out sideways.
Oh my gosh,
um,
that's so good.
and that's true. Like, you stuff down the shame around sex, and all the misinformation. You stuff that, and how does it come out in our society? It comes out in a very dark shadow way, right? And then it gets a bad rep, instead of the sacredness that it is.
And the way it's often portrayed. I mean, we are fed
Mm-hmm.
a lot of information, just
Yes.
even visually, on advertising and movies, and
Yeah.
you can get a really if that was your understanding of how the world worked, if you watch TV, you would have a really messed up view of the world.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of young people are getting their messages, that their education, their sex education, from that. And, then we wonder why relationships don't work, or why there's violence against women, and, you know,
Yeah, and yeah, I'm remembering education from school, and I don't think the teachers were prepared to teach it.
no, no, that's no. I actually went to a Catholic school,
Okay,
and a priest taught me.
really,
Yes.
really, wow. And I suppose their agenda was don't do it
Don't do it, and it's
unless you're married
unless
and
you're
making
married.
babies.
Exactly, but not really telling, like, yeah. So, but I mean, he had no idea about my anatomy or anything, like, So, I think it's one of my goals in life is actually to empower parents so they can empower their children. Because sometimes parents are
Right.
so too embarrassed to talk about it, right? And then the child gets information from
Their
you know
friends.
their friends or the internet and
TikTok.
all that. Oh goodness. Um,
Don't use TikTok to educate your children.
no, 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 no.
And I mean, I guess what do you think is a way to start to deconstruct that? Like, how do you approach it to make people start to relax?
Hmm. Well, for me, it's just talking about what I do, and I go on podcasts, I'll do my networking, and it's funny, like, either people get drawn to me, or they're like, oh, they don't want to talk to me. Um, but that's okay, because it all comes, like, my most perfect clients are the ones who are open and ready for this work, and it takes time. It takes a willingness to want to change, because you're changing a story about yourself, you're changing some old belief systems, and it could be scary. So um, I really like to teach people, and address this topic more of you know really kind of coming back to your own um, reclamation of bringing pleasure into your life, right? Just and in the smallest stuff. It could be, just like I said, it could be eating a piece of chocolate with intentionality, and connecting back to your body. And that's a main part of when I work with clients, is bringing them back into their body, because most of us are not in our body because of trauma, or different things that have been put upon us. It's been safer kind of just to disconnect. So we really don't know what we feel anymore. We're too much in the head.
Well, and I find it's not even necessarily trauma or bad things that have happened. I think we just as a society reward everything intellectual, and
Mhm.
unless you're, $20 million a year athlete, which even that I just can't even wrap my head around. But because I've taught yoga for 19 years and
Mm,
I mean, I retired from massage therapy, but even just regular people, if you ask them, I would be treating someone or teaching someone and they would say, "Oh, what's that?"
right.
It's just like, well, you didn't know that your arm hurt? You just didn't notice that? And because they are just kind of like cut themselves off at the neck and
Yeah,
think this body is just this thing that carries them around instead of its own
mhm,
intelligence system. And
absolutely.
the brain and the
Absolutely.
body are supposed to work together, friends. They're
Mhm.
friends. Let them hang out together and play, right?
Yes, yes, because, something that could start off as just a whisper, where you can, catch things in time, but a lot of people wait until it's like a big scream and like something is really wrong now. Now I have to do something about it instead of being in tune with, oh, this is happening in my body. What do I need to change or look at?
And that's one of the things that I used as an example for people as well. And it's exactly what you're saying was when people came to me who were in pain, I
Hmm.
tried to have them realize that the reason they were in pain was because they didn't hear what was happening before.
Yeah.
And pain is your body shouting loudly because you didn't hear it the rest of the time. It was the only way it could get your attention was to yell at you. So take care of me now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's that what's that saying? It's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
when people pull their back out. Oh, I pulled it out. Just picking up a paper clip. Well, no, you didn't. No, that's not what happened.
I have a friend once who said he threw his back out by putting on his sock. And I said, I don't know about that.
You're right.
I think this is
Heavy
not the
sock.
sock's fault. It's not the
No.
sock's fault. Definitely not. Are there practices that you use that help people? Like, do you have people do mindfulness or visualizations or even just like movements, or do you find it varies between people?
Yeah. Well, I I really start with yes, with breath work because I feel when you can feel your breath moving through your body, we can actually feel you breathing because
Right.
and then you know that when you not, aren't breathing, you can pause and start your deep breaths because a lot of us just breathe just from our chest and very shallow. So really start connecting that deep breath to the belly and feeling it moving through the body just brings more awareness. And then people start to actually maybe feel the tingling, more tingling in their fingers and, in their toes. And there's just more awareness. So when people, I mostly work with women right now, but when they start to have more awareness within their body, of their body, and there's many things that happen. First, I like to teach that the body is the sacred temple. So there's only certain, you have to be discerning of who you're going to allow in this temple.
Right.
And that can change a lot of relationships as well. How a woman goes out and dates and expresses in herself. When she considers herself this goddess in this temple, she holds herself in a different way. And that can just simply come from just breathing and getting more aware of your body. Just down the road, it's just the natural thing that happens is you'll start to awaken more of your sexual organs. And there's different practices that I use in my program with one of my favorite is using a jade egg. Jade egg is a beautiful way, not only so it hits the physical part, it hits the physical of strengthening pelvic floors and bringing more health to the vagina, and also spiritually and energetically it helps release stored stuckness and stored energy or trauma that has been festering in those areas.
Because of the type of stone specifically?
Yeah, you definitely start off with the actual neophyte jade because it's very sturdy, it's very safe, it's almost like an antibacterial, so its
Huh?
bacteria doesn't get into the pores, so it's very hard, and it has it has a neutral energy. It has a even balance of yin and yang.
Oh, okay.
So it's very soothing to the energetic system, nervous system. And then you could, after practicing for a while, you can get different other types of eggs that have a little bit more, maybe more, um, you know, male divine divine masculine energy in there, or whatever you might be wanting to be bringing into yourself.
It's interesting. I talked to a pelvic floor physiotherapist at one point
Mm.
because, I mean, it is important. I mean, it's a muscle, friends, or actually,
Yes.
it's a bunch of muscles. But
Mhm.
if things aren't working properly in your body, what do? You go to the gym and work out. So working out your all of the muscles of the
Well,
body are
yeah,
important. But I'd
yeah.
never heard about using a specific the jade egg, which I find fascinating. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's very cool. And because I do know like the energies of different crystals, but I hadn't really considered it in that way before. That's very awesome.
Mm.
I feel well, I'm wearing a pink.
Rose quartz.
Yes, that's it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Thank you. I feel like that's a more feminine kind of stone, but it could just be my impression of it.
Yes, yes. There's rose quartz, yeah, eggs and wands you could use. Hmm.
Awesome, awesome. And you were saying you work mostly with women. Do you find that men are drawn to it as often? I guess not, or you just don't generally work with them.
Well, with men, there's a different approach.
Well, yeah,
With men, what I'm really feeling called to do is more like online courses, because more
okay.
men are drawn to like just going and watching something as opposed to one-on-one help, and that's just a generalization, just from my experience. Um, Women will seek out help more than men do. So it's just all, again, when they're ready, when they
And
feel.
and it is a generalization, but it is
Yeah.
true. Like when you're lost, who asks for directions?
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
who does it?
Yeah, and usually if you're in a couple, maybe it's the woman who wants to go to therapy, and
Right?
so it's understandable. And again, I mean, that's just, I think just social conditioning,
Very much.
so it's just changing that story again.
Yeah, I mean, women have been conditioned in a certain way to think that they need to be in a certain way, but men have as well, in that,
Yeah.
they think they need to be the strong with all the answers, provider, know all the answers, show no weakness, etc., etc.
Mm,
But that's not necessarily in their best interest either, right?
no, it's a lot to hold.
It is a lot to hold.
Hmm.
Everybody's trying to hold up the whole world, but if you just got a friend to help you hold it up, just imagine. Just imagine. Ooh,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
so cool.
Hmm.
And so I do agree that men tend to like to jump in and just do their own course,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
I run a program as well. And the men who come to my webinars always just, yep, just show me the videos and I'll go figure it out. I'm like, okay, you don't,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't need my help. That's fine.
I remember when one of my first male clients, we were over Zoom, and he showed up. Now, I had a process we were going to go through, and he showed up with his snacks and his glass of wine on Zoom. And I was like, okay, I guess you're just not really getting what this is about. It's not a date.
Right? And it's also not he's just going to sit there and listen. And
Well, yeah, well, or even do the process, but he might be snack, so he's not going to be totally like present in this in
yeah.
right. Yeah, so I think it was an avoidance mechanism on his part.
Did you get him around? Did you bring him around?
Yeah, well, we worked a few times together, but that
Okay.
was it. Yeah.
Do you find there's an age range usually that comes to you, or that you work with, or are you finding that it's kind of across the board as more people kind of open up to the idea?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I get women usually coming into their 30s, That seems like to be a big transition period. And then about 50, 55-ish, kind of, all right, we're going into maybe a empty nest situation soon. And, they
And
don't have to,
maybe, yeah,
they
maybe
don't have to,
in the interim, they've been busy having babies. Like,
right. Yeah. And yeah, taking, exactly. And doing life that way, so it's understandable.
and it's very true. So, have you heard of the group of 27?
And no.
So, I think it's just anecdotal, but the age of 27 is what you mentioned, like coming into your 30s. It's an interesting energetic transition year,
Hmm.
and I know for myself, 27 was, boy, that was a year. But a lot of really famous people die at 27 because they,
Oh, I
yeah,
just noticed that because I just watched a Doors documentary,
right?
and then they had it was Janis Joplin died at 27 and Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix. Yeah,
Even
interesting.
even recently, like Amy Winehouse, so many
Oh,
people, like
hmm.
27 is this age. I don't know if it's, I guess it's probably a whole bunch of factors, but a little bit I wonder if it's like now you can't be in you're not going to be in your 20s anymore. You got to be a real grown up and they're just
Hmm.
not ready, or there's some kind of energetic shift that has to happen, or you're reaching a decade with significance and you look forward and you think, "Oh my gosh, what?"
Yeah, that's
Right?
very interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I just remember 27 was when I left a relationship of a very long time, and it was a big, huge shift. And I think it was the best thing I ever did. But at the time, it was traumatic, right? It's like,
Yes,
oh, what the heck am I doing? If only there were coaches back then,
I
right?
know, I know, I know, I know. I remember the first time I heard about a life coach, and I was like, someone who coaches you through life? Like, what the heck is that about? But I'm
Yeah,
like, I kind of kicked myself. Like, I could have used that.
right. I know. I can remember the first time I met a life coach, and I thought, is that a real job? And now I do it and I say, heck yes, it's a real job. And yes, no, we're not telling you how to live your life. We're just really helping you with the to navigating
Right.
navigating
Hmm.
life, right?
It's getting tools. That's really what it's about, right? Just getting re-educated and getting tools and guidance.
And every coach has their specialty area of what they can help you the most with
Hmm.
and what you're struggling the most with. And even when I do have clients, if I think there's some other area they need specific help in, I'm going to send them out to someone with that zone of genius,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Because everyone is different. The
Yeah.
It's interesting. It would be interesting, like you mentioned, trying to help parents
Mm.
find a way. Because I can remember, I don't think my mom ever had the talk. Right there, it says it all. The talk with
Right.
and there's so much stigma and build up, and it's no wonder that parents don't know what to say because they've got themselves so wound up. So are there resources now, or is there things that you use now to help parents?
Well, ideally, it would be really great to catch them right when, even before they have a baby, or right before, like when they have. So, like, I think when where parents stumble about the talk when it comes like to that, 12, 13-ish age is very one thing they've been calling like body parts all these cutesy funny names.
Right?
And how do
Yes.
you talk about that in a very educational, serious way? Like, so and so might put their your pee pee in your yaya, and like, how could you? The
The
child is going to be
what?
very like, yeah, what? So I think it's important to start really educating your child about the proper terms of their anatomy, and because they have names, and they have different functions, and so that I think would open up so many doors when you can get if you can get comfortable saying penis and vagina and vulva, like you could get comfortable saying that, then I think you can ease your way into talking about. intercourse and how babies are made.
And the funny thing is, right now, in this day and age, I think if you waited till the age of 12, they probably know more than you do.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's why you have to start, let's plant those seeds early, so it'll be easier,
Do you currently have resources for parents, or is that something that's in the works?
That's in the works. It's actually an idea that was given to me last night at a networking event.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, so that seed has been planted, and we'll see, hopefully over the next few months, I'll get something up on my website, kind of a resource that parents can have to go to.
Because I mean, you can talk about, because I remember my sex ed class in high school was all about the mechanics.
Right.
It's like, well, it's like, yes, it's important to know the mechanics, but it's also important to understand the emotional context of it
Hmm.
and the power dynamics of it and the,
Well, and there's
like,
boundaries, there's consent.
right,
Teaching your children consent and boundaries, like, I was just actually listening to something. This was right before the holidays. It was on a podcast. I'm like, this is really great information for parents. I don't know if you had this when you were growing up, but we had relatives come over. I had to kiss everybody or go sit on so and so's lap, and like if I didn't
right,
want to, you had to, and because it would be rude that auntie would feel bad if you didn't. But the thing is like you're teaching children that what they're feeling in their body isn't important and what they say is not important. So
right,
then as they get adults, they don't understand what consent is, or they assume that everybody else knows better for them.
right.
And that leads to, yeah, it leads to bad relationships. It leads to, just not feeling good about yourself.
And that's not something that I would have thought of. Like that's a really interesting example that because you are expected to, hug and kiss your aunts and uncles and grandparents, and I know some people who just aren't huggers. They just
Hmm.
That's just who they are.
Yeah.
So I developed it because I am a huge hugger. I'll hug complete strangers, but I always ask, "Are
Yes.
you a hugger?"
Yeah. Would you like a
Because
hug? Can I
would
touch
you like
you?
a hug?
Yeah.
Yes. And but it is true that in little kids, we don't ever give them that opportunity to express who they are. They're not just being crabby little kids. Maybe they just don't want to.
Yeah. And you know what? If you give them space, probably 5 minutes later, children, they'll probably be on the person like, oh, I'm hugging and kissing them, because
Right?
they got the choice. They got to choose.
That's such
So,
an interesting example.
mhm,
That one just never occurred to me.
yeah.
Good to think about.
Hmm.
Good to think about. So good. And you have a Facebook group too, right? Is it a closed group? Is it
Uh, it's private, so you just
private?
ask to join and then you come in. Yes, I switched it over for this year to be more of a sex educational platform, to just share different articles and maybe things I'm learning through my own certification, and it includes both men and women in there. Just and sometimes there's dialogue, but mostly it's just me kind of posting, what I find interesting that someone might want to
And
get more
what's
information
the
about.
name of the group?
It is called Everything Sex, the real sex talk with the unbridled woman.
And you told me that the E in sex is
Oh, it's a star, so it's
a star.
S star X, yes, because
So the
otherwise,
Facebook police won't come.
yes, yes, yeah, you'll be surprised how, yeah, puritanial, or I don't know that word, but these
Puritanical, like
puritanical,
tyrannical.
yes, that's a great word. Yeah, it's like you show everything else, but that you can't put the word. Yeah, I can't. You can't even sometimes put vagina, which is
Well,
actually a
you
body
you
part.
you can't educate.
You
You
can't.
can only hate,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
sadly.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, so don't worry, Facebook friends. I'm going to include or Facebook friends. podcast friends, I'm going to include the link in the show notes to the Facebook group if you want to just go and check that out. And your website has resources for people on it as well, and how to contact you as well.
It does, yes, and it has ways. I also have a YouTube channel that you can join from the website. And yeah, the website just goes in a little bit more detail of how I work and what I offer for women, men, and couples.
What's on the YouTube channel?
That's my pathway to pleasure, and there I talk about whatever's kind of just hitting me when I want to go on screen. So there's talks about the jade egg, different womb awakening practices, intimacy, just kind of things that I find interesting. I like to share about.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yes, YouTube is a great resource for some things, but sometimes you can't find what you're looking for because it's so crowded, right?
yeah. There's a lot on there.
So
Yeah, hmm
make sure you go so it's through your website they can find it.
yeah, yes, yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing all of this and things to think about. So, we, yeah, it's like shift your thinking, right? Shift your thinking and really be okay in this beautiful body that you have, right?
yeah. I mean, this it's our vessel of the soul, and it was it was given to us to, I believe, to. I mean, this is my belief. We came down in spirit. Like when we're in spirit form, we don't have the body to. I mean, we're love and light. We have that kind of, but the actually like that feel of it's different, right? So let's take this gift and use this body for the pleasure that it's for us, and releasing that shame and guilt around. Take bringing that into our life.
Right?
It's I truly think it's our birthright.
That's awesome. It's funny because I was going to ask you for a final word of wisdom, but
There you go.
I think that was it. I was like, wow, she knew I was going to ask her. And it is true. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So why not experience the good stuff, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so good. Thank you so much, Deanne.
Thank you,
Thank you
Heather.
so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. And for my friends out in podcast land, take good care of yourselves, my friends. Choose the fun side of life. I will see you again next time.